It was in Sialkot that one of his early contacts, his early communion with God or God's care for him was reported. There's many reports, but I'm not going into the detail. I'm just in relation to Sialkot, where he served for some time in the court of law. There, once he, along with some others, he was residing in a small room which was on the second floor or the first floor. And it was night and they were all asleep. When he got up and he said, "Look here, I hear the sound of this girder." It was in fact a wooden beam. "I hear a sound from the wooden beam that I'm going to break, as if it's going to break. So let's go out." They said, "You hear these things, come on. Don't disturb, let us sleep." He didn't go out himself. After a while he said, "Look here, it's dangerous to remain here. Come on, let's go out." They said no. The third time he shook them up. He said, "For God's sake, what are you doing? I'm telling you, this roof is going to fall." And he did not leave he did not lead them. He stayed behind until all of them had vacated the room. And this is on the witness of those people who were there themselves present. So impressed. As they were going downstairs, they wanted to go to the room underneath. Then the roof fell. And it fell with such violence that it also smashed the roof below on the floor of which they were sleeping. And this also hit the ground. And it's how Allah ordained. They were on the staircase, one after the other. When this accident happened, if they had gone earlier, they would all have been killed. So this was right from the beginning. We have reports of his receiving favors from Allah. Dreams which came to be fulfilled, visions which came to be fulfilled, even revelations started. And the first revelation which he received was about the death of his father. And from then on, this whole thing continued into a sort of stream of revelations which ended up only with his life. After this, I'll
Yes, Sadhu, what was his age at that time?
At that time, I think he should be very young, because I tell you, at the time of his father's death, he was about. His father died in 64.
60 years,
Huh?
30 years.
About 30 years. At the time of the death of his father, he was 30 years.
Yes.
And he was appointed by God as not as Al Mahdi al Masih, but as one who would represent, who was made a Mamur, we should say. The first revelation of Mamuriyat, that is, I commission you, let's say commissioning. The first time he was commissioned in 1882. That was, in fact, the beginning of his official representation of Islam, which went through many stages later on. So we are talking of a period before, it was 74 when his father died, or before?
I think around 65.
64 or 65. Find out from later on. Maybe we will tell you again. But he must have been younger than 30, around 25 or so. The first revelation was وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقِ. He didn't say النجم الثاقب, only that much. Now his father was terminally ill in those days. So when he heard this, he felt very sad, because he understood that night the father would die. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقِ. So he understood the message. But then something happened. He thought that I have never paid attention to my own shares in the property of the family. I don't know who does what and what is the income and what is my share and this and that. Whatever my father and mother out of pity sent me by way of food or clothing, that is all I know. So what would happen to me afterwards? This is what he thought. And the second revelation came then with great, glory and majesty, and also a sense of, sort of disapproval of that thought. And that was, Alaysa Allahu bi kafin abda? Is God not sufficient for his servant? This shook him right to the foundations. He cried and sought forgiveness from Allah. He said, forgive me. You were my before and you will be my afterwards, and I don't care for who dies and what happens to. And what a beautiful thing happened. It was much before he was appointed by God. He had such faith in that revelation that he sent someone to Amritsar, a township, big city in fact nowadays, 36 miles away to the west from Qadian. Because in those days in Qadian, no one could make a signet ring where you could, a khatam with which you can seal a thing. So he told him to go to Amritsar, find a good expert, and tell him to make a ring for me with this Alaysa Allahu bi kafin abdahu, engraved over that, so that I never forget this message again. And this is that ring. See, this is it. How it came to my hand. It's a very interesting story.
Grace of Allah.
When he died, it so happened that at different times he had different revelations which he also likewise had got engraved on rings. And it was 4 rings which he was bearing. And he left behind 4 children. 3 sons. 3 sons. They drew lots. 2 of those signet rings came to the share of my father, and 1 to my uncle and 1 to the younger uncle. Maybe a small mistake here and there, but it's not a conscious mistake. Roughly, as I remember things, this is what happened. Now, the most important thing on which everybody's eyes was this ring. The first is a very special ring. So instead of fighting among themselves as to who should get this ring, they drew the lots, and this fell to the lot of my father. Now, he wore all his life, but when he died, he made a will that this ring is far too important to be considered a family property. This belongs to the Jamaat Ahmadiyya. So after me, whoever will be the Khalifa, he will wear this ring. So after him, Hadhrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, my eldest brother, happened to be the Khalifa. So he received it not as a family property, but as by virtue of his being the Caliph. So he wore this ring all his life. After he died, and when I was elected with the grace of Allah to this office, then those who were in charge of things which he had left behind, they came and brought me this ring and said, now this belongs to you. You, as long as you are Khalifa, till death of course, you will wear this. So this is the story, background story I've told you already.
Inshallah.
Alaysa Allahu bi kafin abda.